I don't really know what to call this series, but in recent years, I've had this string of surgeries, and this is one of them. So, in my arm, as you can see, this nodule right here, I have something called a graft, and this graft allows the nurses and the techs, or should I say the techs, at the dialysis clinic to perform dialysis on me. So, because my veins inside weren't very good, they couldn't make something called a fistula. A fistula is made up of your own. It's like an expansion of your veins using your own veins. If that makes any sense, right? So since the veins in my arm were very good, what they had to do was they had to put in a like a artificial graft to expand them, to expand the veins in the arm enough to allow for dialysis. So while that was healing, they had to do something in order to give me dialysis because the peritoneal catheter wasn't working. So what they did was they put in this. This is called the AV catheter, a arterial venous catheter. And under normal circumstances, they don't like to put these in just because there's a high rate of infection. Because, this thing is connected like to my chest right into my heart. So these two cords here that you see in this photo are connected right into my heart. Like it's right in my heart. So they would connect the machines to these two tubes, and then they would cycle my blood and then clean it that way. It's not ideal, and it doesn't clean your blood as efficiently as a fistula or a graft would, or even a peritoneal catheter would. But it's something that they put in temporarily in order to be able to clean my blood until my catheter healed, until my graft healed up, because they couldn't just do it immediately because the graft had to take time to heal. It was super swollen, like twice the size that it is right now. So it took a long time for it to heal. But once it did, it was good to go. So I was completely under when they put the AV catheter in, because they had to do 3 surgeries at the same exact time while I was under. So 1, they had to remove the PD catheter that was in my stomach. And that's a video that's coming later. 2, they had to put in the AV catheter into my chest. And 3, they had to put in the graft. So that's 3 surgeries at one time. So the recovery time was like, my recovery time was nuts. I was laid up in the hospital for a long time, and I was in a lot of pain. My arm was swollen, my stomach hurt, and my chest hurt. And the surgery to remove it wasn't really all that much more pleasant. So I was on the table. So I'm completely awake. And they're doing localized anesthesia, so I'm completely awake for this. And they had me on the table. I'm laying on my back. And they numb me up. Like, I'm under local anesthesia. They numb me up. So I feel the surgeon, he's pulling and he's tugging. And he's pulling, he's tugging. Now this thing, like these 2 cords here are sticking out of my chest. And they're directly inside my the arteries in my heart. So I feel him pulling and tugging, pulling and tugging. Next thing you know, he makes one big pull, and then I feel a pop inside my chest, and he just pulls it out like a string, like some spaghetti. And he pulls it right out, and he shows it to me, and the cord was like this long, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, like that was in your chest." we don't like using it because, there's high risk of infection. And the recovery time for it wasn't really that long. He put a couple of adhesive sutures on. There was no stitching that was needed, but he put a couple of adhesive stitches on, and I was good to go. There was a little hole, but put sutures on, I was good to go. A couple of days later, maybe like a week, I was fine. Having an AV catheter is not ideal. It was a nightmare for me. I was constantly afraid of getting it snagged on things, and then having it snatched out of my chest. I couldn't sleep on my stomach for the same reason. Like if I slept on it wrong, I could pull it out of my chest. I would bleed and possibly get an infection. From a self-defense standpoint, you get into a scuffle with a person, and they're grabbing on you. They grab the catheter and they rip it right out of your chest, and it would probably be extremely painful. So that is the story of the AV catheter.